This is the Prostate Pit Stop. One man's journey, everyone's fight. With Keith Smith and Matt McCleary. Sponsored by the Ferry Project. Visit our website, ferryproject.org.uk. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Prostate Pit Stop. I'm Matt McCleary.
And I'm Keith Smith.
And it's great to have you joining us on our podcast today. Now, Keith, last time we spoke in the last episode, we were waiting with bated breath to see whether or not you would have your operation rescheduled. Can you tell us what's happened since we last spoke?
Okay, well, I'm pleased to say that the operation was rescheduled and the delay in the end was a fortnight. It was due to just the operating theatre being overused in a sense, and there are just too many people needing operations. So that was a very difficult time, if I'm being honest, because you get yourself very psyched up for it. And I wanted to make sure I had to phone up my cancer nurse just to talk it through, because the whole build up and getting yourself ready and then for it to be cancelled, and you think, well, what's more important than me having an operation for cancer? But in the end, I understood, there are all sorts of things going on. So they rescheduled it for a fortnight later. And indeed, we're now 4 days after that operation. So this is the Wednesday, and I had the operation last Saturday. So, yes, it's been quite an interesting experience, let's say that.
Yeah. So let's rewind about 4 days then. What was the operation like for you? What did it entail, all that kind of thing?
Well, when they contacted me after the operation had first been cancelled, they said to me, okay, so let's reschedule. We can schedule you in a fortnight's time. Well, you live a few miles away, because we live in Wisbech and the operation is in Norwich, and that's an hour and a quarter, hour and a half's drive. So they said, oh, we'll put you in later in the day. We'll put you about 11 o'clock. And I said, no, not this time. I'll go as early as I possibly can. I'll be there whenever you want me to be. So we had to actually get up about 4:45, and we left by 5:30 in the morning, and got in, and we had to be there for 7 o'clock. And that was all fine. I mean, the adrenaline's running by then and all the rest of it. So you want to get on with it. And then there was a couple of hours wait before I was taken in. So I've never had an operation before. I've never had anesthetic. I've never experienced any of those things. So sitting waiting for an operation is quite unusual. It felt very much for me the first time I went flying, and I was a bit nervous about getting on the plane. It feels very, very similar to that type of stuff. So you're wondering what's going to happen. But all the staff are really friendly. They're all very nice, all very supportive. I couldn't eat from the night before. I had to drink half a litre of fluid before 6 a.m. in the morning, and it had to be clear fluid and stuff like that. So all interesting. But then once they actually came and said, right, well, we are going for the operation now, everybody, they're just so incredibly professional. They know what they're doing. They're very reassuring. The anaesthetist was really good. It explained everything to me. So I knew what I was going to do in my head, but actually experiencing it is very different. But they were great. So, being knocked out for the first time with anaesthetic, it was just very pleasant, just going to sleep. And the anaesthetist was really good. Just chatted me through it, said you'll feel drowsy now and stuff, and it was. And then for me, I was when I woke up, it just felt like I'd had a normal sleep. So I was just waking up from a normal sleep.
I was going to say, how did it feel when you wake up? Because sometimes you can have like a really bad headache, or some people sort of surface saying really strange stuff and all this kind of thing. But no, you just had a pleasant nap.
Yeah, just had a pleasant nap. 4 hours. So the operation must have taken about 3.5, because I was under the anaesthetic 4 hours. So, pleasant nap. Woke up just like waking up in the morning. It took me a couple of hours to actually properly wake up. I kept on falling asleep and waking up and falling asleep and waking up. But that was okay. And it was all nice and comfortable. And I've been warned that maybe my throat would feel a little sore or stuff like that because of the pipes and stuff, but I didn't feel any of that.
Okay.
I think I did very well out of the whole thing.
Yeah. Last time I had general anesthetic, it was to remove a stent they put in when I was going through my chemotherapy and cancer, because there was a big mass by my kidneys, so they had to put a stent in. Um, but getting it out. So I'm glad you didn't know really anyone on the team. When I turned up to get my stent removed, that was under general anesthetic. And for those listeners, they put the stent in and took the stent out through my penis. So you knew that when you were knocked out, everything was going to be on display. And I turn up, and the anaesthetist comes to the bed, as I'm sure they did with you, and said, "Oh, hello, my name is so and so and so and so." But I got the anaesthetist coming saying, "Oh, hello, Mr. McCleary," because I used to be a school teacher, and it was one of my parents, one of the old parents whose child I used to teach. And so we had this very surreal discussion about how this child was getting on at university now, and how are you and how are things. And I'm just desperately trying to put out of my mind that, in a few minutes, she's going to knock me out and then see everything. I'm glad I didn't see her afterwards. I was in the hands of the recovery team at that point. But yeah, so that's what happened to me the last time I had a general anesthetic. Rather embarrassing. But anyway, there we go. So what could you tell us? What would you like to tell us about your operation? And was it successful, not successful? And what sort of scarring and all that kind of thing is going on?
Okay. So, well, let's start with the good news. So, they came around the next day and basically said it'd been a textbook operation. Everything had gone to plan. There was no signs of the cancer spreading outside of my prostate. They didn't take any lymph nodes, which is good because that can lead to some complications if they have to do that. And they've taken some samples around my prostate just to see if the cancer has spread. So I'll find out the results for that in a few weeks' time. But the initial response is all very positive, and hopefully, I am now cured of cancer. We'll have to wait and see. So that was all really good. I was expecting it to hurt. I've been warned that it would hurt a lot, and I'm very glad to say it's just not materialized. So I've only had a few paracetamol and a couple of ibuprofen since the operation, which is 4 days ago. So to be frank, I'd say there's no pain really, bit of discomfort. I've got six little holes, the biggest one being just above my tummy button.
But why 6 holes? Is that because of the way they did the operation? Can you just tell us how they did?
Yeah. So this is a robotic operation system. So we're very fortunate where I live that they have one of these robotic systems. And it means that they can be very precise with how they do the cuts and so on. And there's a surgeon who controls it all. You might be able to see it on telly if you go on YouTube. I'm sure you'll be able to find an example. But they can control it. And with the prostate operation, one of the key things is they want to be very precise. They don't want to take more tissue than they need to. Anything that they do could potentially damage something that's useful. It could lead to incontinence. It could lead to problems with erections in the future and stuff like that. So everything, they're trying to be very, very accurate, very precise. So using the robot, it is very accurate, very stable, very still. So the 6 holes are where the different parts of the equipment went into me. And they call it keyhole surgery. So it means that they were able to do it with the minimum damage into my abdomen. And that's why, to be frank, I haven't had a lot of pain, because they didn't have to cut through all the muscle tissue and everything else and actually have holes big enough for somebody to get their hand in and take stuff out and so on. Everything was done with this equipment. So it's wonderful that was possible, and it's wonderful the results that it's generated. So they've done some stitching, but when I came out, no bandages, nothing. I was just stitched up. Very interestingly, my whole bottom section from just above my tummy button to just above my knees were all painted pink, which I believe is a type of antiseptic stuff that they put on to do it. So that was a surprise.
Did they draw arrows? Because sometimes they get their little Sharpie out and they draw arrows sort of over here. This is where you need, this arm or whatever. But yeah, okay, interesting.
Okay. Yeah, so that was all good. So yes, so they removed my prostate. As I say, it's all been very successful. I haven't needed much pain relief. And the scars are not sensitive to touch, but they did have to check my kidney function just in case it impacted my kidneys in any way. And that's not there's no problem there, all working fine. So the operation at this moment in time has been fully successful, and I am just totally surprised by how easy and how straightforward the whole thing's been. Now, the other part to this, though, is they had to put a catheter in because part of removing the prostate, they actually had to cut through the tube that goes from the bladder out through penis to weave through, and they had to reattach it. So they had to put a catheter in to make sure that they don't damage the connection when they rejoin it together. So that's going to be in for 14 days. That is very strange. It is very unusual. Never experienced anything like that before.
So is that entering sort of through a hole they've made in your abdomen then to get to your bladder, or how?
Straight up the penis.
Straight through. Oh, okay.
Right, straight into the bladder, and it comes out, and there is, people talk about a bag, but literally there's plastic pipe work that lead to a bag, and you have a valve which you open and close to let it out, and during the night you have a bigger bag to go into.
So you're looking a bit like a fish tank at the moment, then.
Well, certainly a plumber would recognise stuff. Yeah. I didn't realise if we're going to get basic, I did not realise how much we are produced in a day because of having to actually go. Because you can actually see it measured. So, you produce litres of this stuff. Overnight, you produce nearly 2 litres of urine, or I do anyway. So it's just remarkable. But yes, so the biggest, if I say the thing that I've taken a little while to get used to is just the fact that because obviously you're not used to anything going on around your penis and stuff, it feels like I need a wee all the time. Yeah. So I'm getting used to it, and you have to just ignore it because obviously the urine is just coming out and going into the bag. Yeah. But that's really strange. So that you've got to get your thinking around that, right? And the other thing I didn't realise was they want to make sure you don't get deep vein thrombosis, so you don't get a blood clot. So I have to inject myself every day. And I hadn't realised I'd need to do that, but you do. It's not difficult in the end. I've never injected myself before, and I can't say I particularly like injecting myself, but it's okay.
I had to do that when I was going through chemo. It's a mental hurdle getting over doing that to yourself. Are you injecting into your stomach or your arm, or how's it working?
Well, the injections actually said put it into your stomach, but then it says don't put it within 15 centimeters of a wound. Well, I'm afraid I've got six wounds across my abdomen at the minute. So I put it into my thigh. They told me to put it in my thigh, and I alternate thighs. So one day I do it on one side and one day I do it on the other. So
I had to inject it to my stomach, and it was hit and miss. I had to do it every day for like 6 months. But yeah, so I guess the nerves are spread out a bit in the stomach. So sometimes I would inject and I wouldn't feel a thing. I was like, hey, brilliant. And then I thought I would go, pretty much the same place, but it obviously wasn't because, wow, that one really hurt because, you get a nerve that time. It's like sort of hit and miss. What's it going to be today, Jim? And
the price is, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, well. Well, yes, I've hit one so far. Hit the nerve once. I've done it 4 times. So it's all in all, it's not bad. So yeah, that's good. The only other side effect really is the fact that I get washed out quite quickly. Yeah. So I get tired. I've slept well. I don't like the fact I've got to sleep on my back because I can't sleep on my side, on my front because of the wounds. My natural position is sleeping on my side, but okay. You go to sleep. It hasn't stopped me, and I've rested well.
Have you got to the stage yet where in your mind feels better and active, and you think, oh, I should be able to do more than this, but it's taking a while for your body to catch up? Because I experienced that.
Yeah. So this morning I woke up and thought, oh right, yes, brain was clear. I'm ready to go. Yes. So now I've seen somebody earlier today. They came and visited, which was really nice. And we're doing this podcast. And I must admit, I'm starting to feel a little weary now. So it's 1:30. So I would not normally be expecting to feel a bit tired and washed out by 1:30. So that side of things is definitely happening, and that's all to be expected, isn't it? Let's face it. I had a major operation 4 days ago. And just on this, I'd like to say personally to all the team that did my operation, thank you very much. The operation, everything went to plan, and people were really great. And I must say that for delivering things like that, the NHS is very, very good. It really is. And even if they do mess up with some of the appointment stuff and some of the organizational stuff, and you feel as though you're not being communicated with effectively, for the actual stuff, the operations and everything else, really very good. So I'm very grateful. And let's face it, 20 years ago, this wouldn't have been possible. And here I am, able to have a major operation and to be able to sit talking to you 4 days later at home on a settee, not in a great deal of discomfort, is just remarkable.
It is amazing. So thank you very much, NHS. That is fantastic. But this isn't the end, because we're going to continue following Keith's journey, because the operation isn't the end of the story.
No.
And there's still a long way to go. So we'll continue joining you, Keith, and catching up with you in the weeks and months to come. So thank you very much for sharing your experiences with us.
My pleasure. And that's probably the most unusual experience I've ever shared with anybody.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. Subscribe, like, and share. We'd love to get the word out about prostate cancer, to just demystify it and just let people know what's what. So share it, like it, and let people know. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to the Prostate Pit Stop, sponsored by the Ferry Project. Make sure you subscribe and share.